grown-up giggers, we have so many lovely, wonderful, familiar faces and also visitor aliens, which is fun too. We love it. You don't have to sign in when you're hanging out. I'm Michelle Ward. I am the When I Grow Up coach. And I am here. I have such a girl crush on her, and I literally just met her 10 minutes ago. And when I asked her to do grown up gigs, like when you talk to one of those people and you're like, there's no way she's ever, not only is she not going to say, not only is she going to say no, she's like not even going to respond. And then when I introduced myself and told her what I did and asked her about this, and she said, yes, I did the happiest dance around my room. I'm with Summer Pierre. She is an illustrator. She is an artist. She is the author of just one of the books that I talk about like pretty much every day to anyone that will listen to me, who's in a job that they hate. The Artist in the Office, and you have other books and other work, and you just have like such a robust, multi-passionate creative career that I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Thank you for having me. You're making me sound like I should wear sunglasses and be like, yes, yes, please.
Yes,
It's a
talk with
pleasure. It's a pleasure.
we'll talk with one of those Madonna affected, like British but
Exactly.
not quite accents. Yeah,
Totally, yes. I'm
so.
from Detroit. I'm from Detroit. Yeah.
Yes, this is right. I'm from Detroit. Okay. Yeah, go check out Summer's website if you haven't already. Obviously, don't go away. Still listen to us.
Yeah.
And to those of you who are new to Spreecast and or new to Grown Up Gigs, why I'm so freaking insistent that I do this live on Spreecast is A, because it's fun to visually talk to each other and visually see you guys, but so that you could chat with each other also. And you could submit a question. So I always make sure to leave time for Q&A, and I don't just like leave the Q&A for the end. So use that submit a question button in order to ask anything that pops into your head along the way. There is no silly or stupid questions at all. And I'm going to see it come on in like my little screen queue, and I'll just keep my eye on it. And every few minutes when there's the natural break of the conversation and we have questions waiting, we're just going to bring them up on the screen, and Summer's going to answer them, and we'll talk about whatever you want. So don't be shy. That's honestly the reason why we do this at this time on a live platform. So if you're already familiar with Summer's work and you have questions already, don't wait to be like, I don't know if Michelle's going to ask that question. Just ask it. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun. And we'll be here for about an hour just learning everything about Summer's career and life. I love it. I'm so excited. Okay, so the first question that I have to ask by law, otherwise I go to life coach jail,
Okay.
is what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were little?
What I'm doing. I wanted to draw pictures and tell stories. That's really what I've always wanted to do, That's really my first love as drawing. I don't even remember not drawing. And yeah, and so I feel like every day that I do this, I touch that. And I touch the kid that wanted to do what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's
I love it. Did you have
yeah.
artists in your family, artistic people in your family?
Yeah, my dad's an artist. He's been an illustrator and a musician, and my mother was actually she was a rigger and a set stage person for rock bands. So I had a very artistic.
What?
Yeah, yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah, yeah. So I had a very artistic background. Yeah.
And it sounds like with that background, were they supportive of you going on that path and exploring that passion?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that my dad was a great example of just doing art no matter what. He was a chef by trade, and he just did art whenever he could and did shows, and that part he was really encouraging by example. I saw that it was something that was an everyday life, you know. And I think my mom was really one of the things that was amazing about her is that she really was a big thinker. And so she was sort of the person in my life who was kind of like, go to college, go and think larger, like don't stay at home, do something larger. And that was totally her example as well. Yeah.
Ah, it's
Yeah.
so interesting to hear it put that way.
Yeah.
I like hearing it think larger, go larger, as opposed
Mhm.
to go to college because you need something to fall back on. I think is what.
No, it was, because I was coming from I came from the hippies, the
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
counterculture who were very
uh-huh.
non-education, all of that. And I think she was really wanted me to see the world and thought of college as being sort of part of that. And so I went, I was as a California person, and I just went east. She was like, "Don't stay in California. Just I want you to go and see the world." So that was kind of her way of getting me out
Uh-huh.
of the nest, the comfort
Oh, so where did
nest.
that take you? Yeah, could you
Yeah,
backtrack a little bit and talk to us,
sure.
just touch on what school was like for you and then what happened once you decided to go to school, to college?
Yeah, I mean, I stayed with my roots. I went to an alternative, very teeny weeny liberal arts college in Vermont called Goddard. And, it was the kind of thing where you made up your own major and were really a part of your own curriculum. And so I really wanted something that I think I really wanted something that was similar to my alternative background. Because I went
Mm,
to an alternative school through eighth grade, and, I really wanted that sort of experience. And then when I was in school, I, it was a great place for me because I was really self-driven, which is still true today. And it helped me sort of nurture what I loved and then pushed me to go farther. And so I really became an amazing, really avid reader. I really studied reading and writing, and I took painting there for the first time. And I had a teacher who instead of sort of critiquing my work, said, you might want to check out Frida Kahlo, or you might want to check out Roy Lichtenstein, and sort of really nurtured it by saying, this is what it reminds me of. And that really gave me quite a way of studying artists and falling in love with art through that.
seems like you had the most supportive group of people. I love, like, I want to give everyone a gold star from the career coach. Like, thank you for encouraging this and being inspiring, and not these stories that I usually
Yeah.
hear, which just makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Um, not
Yeah.
not that it's impossible to have the career that you have if you didn't
Hmm.
have the support. Obviously,
Yeah.
it is possible, but so
Right.
so much better.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it isn't to say that there weren't stumbling blocks, that there weren't
Right.
other ways of, there was still grist for my mill. There was still the tides that I had to push up against. Everybody has that. And I don't think that you can be an artist without it. I really don't. There's a reason that you sort of go inward and you create a world inwardly because there's something outside of you that you're trying to work through.
Right.
So it's not
Right.
to say, I mean, I had some, I would say that I had some unusual channels of support. That's very true.
Mm.
Very true. But it isn't to say that I didn't struggle or have other things that were not supportive.
Right. Right.
I mean, perfect
Right.
example, I paid for school myself. That's a perfect example. My parents did not have money to do that. And so while my mother was encouraging, the support had to come from myself. So I had jobs. I really did. I just paid off my school loans 2 years ago. It's
Oh,
yeah, which I'm
congrats!
like,
That's huge.
woo, I feel so proud of myself. So,
It's so huge.
yeah,
Right.
it's huge.
Right.
The
Right.
self-esteem builder.
Oh my God, for sure. Oh my God, to not have to look at that every month.
Yeah.
My husband just paid off his loans about a year ago, and
Yay,
we
look
definitely
what.
brought
Yeah. Yeah.
champagne and yeah,
Feels
exactly.
amazing. Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So what happened after college? So you had all this support, but you're obviously working your ass off,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Working, real jobs and working on your art.
Yeah. So I wanted to go to a city that wasn't New York, so I went to Boston, and I wasn't ready for New York yet. And I know it's so scary.
It's
So
so
I went,
scary.
I know it's so
So
scary until
big.
you
It's
get there,
scary.
and then you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I went to Boston for about 6 years, and at that point, I was doing more. I had started playing music, and so I actually
Mhm.
ended up being in one of the most amazing, thriving folk rock scenes, I think, yeah, ever. It was an incredible, and I did that for about 5 years. I was a touring musician.
What did you
Yeah, so
play?
oh, well, I was a guitar. I was singer-songwriter, me songs, and yeah, I had a band in the end, and I put out an album and everything. It was a good post-college life, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so curious, and I'm such a Renaissance soul,
I know you are.
multi-potentialite
I
scanner.
know you are. I know you are.
As
Yes.
are, everyone that I attract, thankfulully, and have
Yeah.
the pleasure of working with. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm always so curious as to, if you could think back that far as to
Yeah.
like what happened that made you kind of say, I'm gonna focus now on
hmm
playing music and being
What
opposed to
what
something.
happened which made me focus on music specifically?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I feel like there's these markers, and it's funny. I was listening to a couple of your interviews before this just to get a picture, and
Oh,
I think
research.
one of the women that you interviewed was at Juilliard, and it was sort of her
Uh-huh.
first love, and then she had the things that sort of drove her out of that. And I feel like, writing and drawing were always my main first love. And then my senior year in college, I got into girl rock. I was into the like Riot
Uh,
Girls and the girl punk rock, and I was really into that as a feminist voice, as a way to do
mm.
art in a feminist way. And this was pre Lilith Fair. Lilith Fair happened like a
Right.
couple years later, just as I was hitting it. And I was like, this is happening. There's this whole thing, this movement I want to be a part of. And my dad got me a guitar because he was a musician. He got me my first guitar. And I taught myself, I was already writing a lot of poetry and fiction. And I taught myself to play guitar by writing a new song for every new chord I learned. So,
Wow.
yeah, it sounds more impressive than it is. There's some really bad songs. I'm
It
thankful to
doesn't
have
matter. It doesn't
I know. So I did. Like I said, very self-directive, So I did that, and I actually made that into my senior thesis. I did a thesis on women in rock, and part of that was actually doing a collection of songs that I performed, and that's what got me started. And what's amazing about that journey is that it's kind of like when you're supposed to do something. I just lived and breathed music. I was so taken with it and loved songwriting so much once I discovered it.
matter.
And when I moved to Boston, it was literally like I walked into an open mic one night and it just changed my life. It was like I met all of my best friends that I was going to have for the next 10 years. And it was just kind of like that. Sometimes the stars align, and I think it's also youth, it's part of that
Right.
that I do. I think
Right.
there's that gift of youth where you're like, oh, who's going to be my friend tonight? Like it's just you're so, open and green
Open.
in that way. Yeah. And so that was a good transition for me, was music.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Did you did you feel you had to make a choice?
I struggled with that a lot. I'll be honest, I struggled with that. I had a lot of people say to me, you've got to choose. And so I was really choosing to do music, but sort of still doing writing and art. I did all of, my own mailers. I did the little comics for my mailers, and, I was fitting it in there. And I think it came to a point where when music wasn't working, when things were starting to like not work, and I really had to dig deep, and that's how I ended up doing art and writing again, because it was almost like you go back to what's natural to you, your first love, like your childhood. You go back to that spark that was there in the beginning, and I feel like once I did that, I did have to choose, because it was almost like having these three amazing paths, like the musician path, or the writer path, or the artist path, and I was choosing all of them in a way that was making me not choose anything. in a
Mm.
hard way, you know. And when I moved to New York, and I ended up moving to New York after all, I really felt that I played a few shows that the bartenders loved, but nobody else came to. And it just felt like this is the end. Like I feel something else calling me, and I need to choose that wholeheartedly. And that's really when the other stuff started blooming. Is when I put down
Oh,
the guitar. Yeah.
love this. Thank you for saying all. I'm hugging my monitor as if
Oh, I'm
you
hugging you.
you were my
Mm,
monitor. I'm like,
mm.
yes, please. Um, because I think that there's truth in that, and
Mhm,
it doesn't need to be one extreme or the other. It doesn't need
mm-mm.
to be you have to pick one thing when you're a creative, multi-passionate person. But it's also that piece of if everything is important, then nothing's important, and
That's
you
right.
do you do have to prioritize.
Yeah.
And not to say that you never have to perform again. You
Mm-mm.
could
No.
obviously perform the life that you have and pick up the guitar at
Yeah.
home and go to open mics and
Yeah.
put out albums if you want
Right.
to.
Yeah.
But you knew in terms of what are you moving forward with as
Yeah.
career, what are you looking at as career,
Yeah.
you knew that there was a choice to
Absolutely. And honestly, I fought that choice for a couple years. I really fought it. But the minute I did, it was such a relief. It was such a
make.
relief, and it was also like all of a sudden this jet stream of, energy came. It's that thing that you resist letting go of in order to live what's really coming, and I can't tell you how many times that has happened in my life. And the minute I let go, it's like, oh, thank God. It's like, oh God, finally
Ah,
things are flowing. And that's really, yeah, and it was really that commitment. It really is that commitment piece. There's such freedom in committing. That's what I say.
oh, there's such freedom in committing. I want to like
Mhm.
tattoo that on my forehead backwards when I look
Yes.
in mirrors. I
Yeah.
could see that.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
that's so well said. And I know that that piece when you try to do something creative as your profession. I mean, I went
Hmm.
very similar with my musical theater stuff. It's like when you decide to let that go, you start hearing that voice in the very back of your
Hmm.
head saying, "This isn't working anymore. I don't think this
Hmm.
is what you want anymore." You're just
Hmm.
like, "No, no, no! I've worked so hard to get
Me
here, and blah
too.
blah. And I've done all this
Yeah.
good stuff, and like,
Yeah.
and who
I
am
want
I
it. I
without
want it.
this
Yeah.
dream?" I
Yeah.
want it so bad. And who am I without this dream and this goal? And like, what
Totally.
do I wake up in the morning and do? And
Totally.
how could I not, pick up backstage every Thursday and put auditions in my book, even if I
Right.
haven't gone to an audition in a year? It's like
Right.
that identity piece.
Yeah.
So I love that you kind of looked at this quarter life identity crisis that kind of sounds like a little bit
Totally.
and looked at
Totally.
it as what initially was my spark, what's my first love, and how could I
Hmm.
get back to that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other part of it is like what's coming easily, because I was like, I did this peak of the music, the music career. Maybe this is true for you with your acting, in your theater, although I know you're doing it again, which is awesome. Um,
Yes, thank you.
but yeah, but I hit this peak, and then all of a sudden, it just things got worse and worse and worse. Like it just went on this, like it wasn't flowing. It was not flowing at all, and I was feeling drained doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a life-giving thing. And I remember there was this one show I played. It was the last show I played. It was in Brooklyn at this little cafe, and it was Past the Hat. And one of my strings broke. It was just like this lousy gig. It was so bad. And I walked home with my boyfriend, now my husband, and I was just like, that's it. I just felt it. I knew that that was it. Because when it's interesting, especially when you're a multifaceted artist, um, and you get success in one place that's very visible, and then it stops working, it's so hard to let go of it. And it's just all of that you're saying. It's like the ego, it's your identity. It's like saying, but who am I without this? It's so
Mm-hmm.
sexy to be this. It's like
Uh-huh.
I love being able to say, yeah, I'm a musician, or walk around town with my
Right.
guitar or whatever, like that's kind of awesome,
Right, right,
right?
right.
But
Right.
like maybe there's this other part was growing in me that really loved spending hours just writing a short story. I wanted to get back to fiction. I wanted to go back, and those things were not going to happen on the trajectory that I was doing. And I had to choose them. I had to say, I want to try this. And those dreams, I think those are the other things. It's like I go through this all the time too, and maybe this is helpful for people. You have a dream of, you're doing one dream, but you have all of these other things that you want to be doing in your lifetime, your quote unquote lifetime. The big life dreams, but you're never getting to them. You're
Right.
kind of putting them off, or you're thinking they're too large to even, I'll get to them eventually. My real life will start eventually. And I think what's the gift of aging is that you get to this point where you're like, I'm not getting to those things, or those things aren't
Mm.
happening to me, you know? So what is one small thing that I can turn towards to help me start assembling those dreams? Because it really is an assemblage. It's not just a happening. It's like a collection of little things that you assemble that makes it happen.
Oh, I love everything you're saying. I want to
Well, thank you.
carry all of it. And I have to just emphasize, like, what's one small thing start assembling, and I always talk
Yeah.
about baby steps. It's baby steps. It's not
Yeah.
going from zero to being Taylor Swift.
No. No, but like I
It
think we forget that all the time. We think
yeah,
too
right,
large, and then it's
right,
daunting.
always,
Like
right,
so many people want
right,
to write a novel. That's a perfect example. So many people want to write a novel that they don't even write one page.
right,
They're so
right,
daunted
right,
by the
right,
novel,
right.
you know? Like just write one page tonight, honey. Just try one page. And then
And then they
tomorrow
go,
try one more
oh, that
page.
wasn't too bad.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
it's kind of easy. And that's
Yeah.
I've been trying to put a cabaret show together since 2002.
Oh my God.
So, it
Yeah.
took me 11 years to actually be like, oh, yeah, it's time for me to do this now.
Yeah.
And
Right.
now I know what I'm going to do. And I had
Yeah.
like a purpose. And I went, yeah, okay, it's time to do this. And that
Right.
was how got back into
But
that.
did but you
I
made
want to,
one small step, didn't you? Did you like go, I want to do
made one
that? And
small,
so
I, I
you
want to
turned
do
towards it.
that. Yeah. And I like had, most of my songs written. I
Yeah.
was writing them and putting them on YouTube. I was like,
Mhm.
I have these songs. They could make a show. Let's put them together with some show tunes and write some things in between
Yeah.
and book the space. And
Yeah.
like that, and I love that advice. I talked to a friend years ago who put up his own cabaret shows. It's like, well, what do you do? How do you figure it out? What do you do?
Mhm.
And he goes, you book the space.
Yeah,
And I go, what do
that's
you mean you
it.
book the space? He goes, the first thing you do is book the space because then you have to put on a show in X amount of weeks, and that's when the show comes.
Right.
It's the same thing. The
Right.
same thing. The same
Yeah, well,
thing.
isn't that funny? Because
Um,
it's like such a specific action. It's so
yeah,
specific and it's
yeah.
actually doable. And I think I'm really a believer in the more specific you get about your dream or your idea, like what is that? What does that mean? What's that one small step? It's almost like I want to go to Europe, and it's like the hardest part is buying the ticket. But once you buy the ticket,
Right.
you're going to
Always.
Europe, you know?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Exactly. I love it. I wanna take a little like a question encouragement break.
Hmm.
You guys, I meant it when I said that I want the questions to be a come in. You guys have been really quiet. So I hope that like everyone's keyboards are okay. I know sometimes if you're like, watching us on an iPhone or something, it's hard to ask questions, but I can't possibly be the only person who has questions for Summer. So please
Bring 'em.
keep them coming. Just yeah, have them come and then keep them coming because a spot like right now would be a great time to stop and ask her questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna hog her all to myself. What happened? So I love this where we're at. So you're embracing all these parts of you that make up your identity, but knowing I can't do everything the
Hmm.
way that I want to be doing it. Let's go
Yeah.
back to fiction specifically, right? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I started doing because I always had a dream of writing fiction, and it was like never finishing things or sort of like the dream of fiction, but never writing that one page.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, it was literally like I made a choice and I thought, I need people. So I joined a writing group, and a friend of mine happened to be starting a writing group just as I wanted to do
Okay.
writing. And I literally, it was wonderful. I think that's another thing that you can't underestimate how even just one other person can make something more real. You know, if you have somebody else
Mm.
in the room with you, it's like I love the word conspiracy because it's about breathing life into something. And so when you have somebody else, you're like a conspiracy group, you know, and you're
Oh my God, we
breathing
all need
life
a
into something.
conspiracy group. Oh
We
my God, I love it.
do.
We
Yes,
do.
plot good things, but
Yeah.
you know, a conspiracy you're breathing life into. So, yeah, so then I started doing that, and then I was, you know, for the first time in 10 years was finishing short stories regularly because I had a group. And, you know, and I think I still write fiction peripherally, but again, that led me to do other things. That it was just like saying yes to that one little piece helped me sort
Mm.
of discover other things. And you know, I always had a dream of taking a class with the cartoonist and writer Lynda Berry.
Uh-huh.
And she had a class, and I finally said yes to taking this class. And it was all during this period. And again, it was one of those, you know, that class changed my life. It helped me write, you know, more in a very fluid way. You know, my music life, I'd been writing songs and everything, but by the end, I was so fried that I didn't trust my voice anymore. And so that class sort of helped me trust my voice. So I started writing more fiction and doing more, you know, stories about my day job and things like that, and
Uh-huh.
illustrating more of my life specifically. And that's kind of how I got to start writing about, you know, the artist in the office was it came from that, and you know, all of that. So,
Mm.
but
How did that
yeah.
come together? Talk to me about the artist in the office, which I just love to pieces.
Well, I actually had the idea of it a couple years before I actually made what became a zine for it. I had a
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
conversation, you know, in New York is great because you go to parties and suddenly you meet somebody that you've heard of, you know, and you're like,
Right.
oh, you know.
Right.
And so I met this author that I kind of assumed a lot of things about because he was very successful. And I, you know, I asked him, I said, oh, do you do this full time? And I could see the embarrassment and the
Uh,
shame come over him. And he's like, no, I don't do it full time. Yeah, I have a day job. And it was like such a light bulb moment for me because I was up to that point, I'd kind of thought if you had a day job that wasn't associated with your art, you weren't real, you weren't legit.
right.
And
Right.
here's this guy who I totally from afar thought was so legit, you know, and even he was kind of sheepish about having an office job.
Mhm.
So I remember writing a blog post about it, and I started just thinking of of that as an experience that I hadn't heard of, like writing the book that you always needed. And at
Right.
that point, there was a lot of discussion online about living your dreams and, you know, being an artist and just dropping everything and leaving everything. And I'm like, I kind of need a paycheck, you know, like I kind of
I
need,
kind of live in New York City and don't have a trust
yeah,
fund.
yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of need stability. I'm also just one of those people that like needs a deadline, needs people, needs all of those things. And yet I'm still writing, I'm still illustrating, I'm still doing all of these things. And I don't consider myself a real artist because I'm going to work every day in an office, you know? So I thought, I wonder if this is like something other people could relate to, you know? So, yeah, hello.
You think?
And
Right.
you think, right, right.
You think?
So the minute it was funny, the minute I got the idea to actually make it into a zine and started just actually talking about how I lived my life essentially as a creative person with a day job, like again, it was like that electricity. Like I knew I was onto something. I remember I woke up I had dreams about it. You know, I woke up and the pages that I made, it just felt like they had this glow to them. I was like, oh my God, you know,
Mm.
I feel like I'm onto something. And so the beauty of my day job was that I was working for a foundation. I was friends with the male the guy who worked in the office, the Xerox machine, and he was like, "Let's copy this and mail it out, to whoever wants it." So I gave it away for free in a hard
Oh,
copy.
wow.
I mailed it all over
Wow.
the world. Yeah. And it turns out there's a lot of people who have day jobs that are arty. I don't know if you know this, Michelle, but
I think
it's
there
kind of
might
a
be a lot.
thing.
I would think even in just in New York City, the people
Yeah.
in office and
Yeah.
restaurant. I mean, you're talking okay, the artists in the office. We're talking only offices. I would say
Yeah.
probably 40% of the people in office jobs,
I would agree with
and
that.
that's a low number.
That's a low number. Yeah.
It's low.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's still one of those things. Recently, this woman, I can't remember her name, she's a poet and she's also a lawyer, and she works in a law office. And she
Okay.
came out with a book of poems about her office work. And it was still sort of like, it's radical still to say out loud, I'm an artist who also works in a day job. And you can hear the relief and the salivation, like, oh my God, yummy, somebody else who's living this life who's actually like cool and legit and published.
Right.
It
Right.
still seems like this like incredible notion to people, but the one of the things that happened when I came up with the idea for Artists in the Office was I started writing down all of the artists that I loved that had day jobs. And there were
Mm.
so many. I mean, even people that I considered like the creme de la creme of artists, like Georgia O'Keeffe. You don't get more iconic as a painter, as an American artist. Before she met Stieglitz, her husband, she was a teacher. She taught art.
Mm.
You know, um, Charles Bukowski, who's like such a writer, was a postal clerk for 24 years. I mean,
Wow.
William Carlos Williams was a doctor. Like all of these people held down jobs and were legit, were fully legit,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I feel like, especially in the 21st century, where we're kind of
Yeah.
all we have so much more freedom to kind of create our careers. I know
Yeah.
that people day jobs aren't necessarily a necessity. That someone
Yeah.
has to have a day job. It's because they they like that aspect
Hmm.
of work. They like that
Yeah.
environment. They want that structure. So
Hmm.
I feel like more and more people will be getting away from this is a day job that I hate in order to
Hmm.
support this thing that I love, but instead I'm a lawyer who actually loves law, who also
Hmm.
is a published poet
Yes.
and
Yeah.
goes on tours and can teach to that or
Yeah.
whatnot. So interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I talk about in Artists in the Office that was sort of I feel like I heard with other people like, oh, my stupid day job, like, oh God, if like your day job's the thing that's in the way of you living the dream.
Right.
When,
Yes. Yes.
which I feel like is a common misconception. I think it's a misconception because it's actually helping you do your job in so many ways. And one of the things, there are many ways that I like for people to investigate that because I started calling my job my benefactor because, there were many ways it allowed me to do non-marketable work, that
Right.
was highly creative and it was non-marketable. It allowed me to do that. It also gave me a life. People underestimate the life that jobs give you. It puts you in the world. It gives you coworkers. It gives you characters. It gives you, an environment of. It's so much about how we socialize now. You know, nobody stays at home anymore. They go to work, and that's who they live with every day. You know,
Right.
and
Right.
and
Really. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of people who wouldn't do well in a freelance setting. They just don't do well with it. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make them less of an artist. They need stability in order to create work. And I was one of those people, absolutely. And so that's the thing that's like, that whole thing of being like, oh, I have to have a job or I feel put upon or there's something less about me as an artist for having a job. I love to have people investigate that and say, how's this job actually working for you? What is it actually providing for you? You know?
Amen and hallelujah.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because this has been a conversation that's kind of been don't know, like in my ear for a while
Yeah.
with my clients. I've been asked this a lot, and it's all about finding the ideal day job. Like they want to
Mhm.
find the perfect day job. And I kind of say, well, the perfect day job is kind of just like what you said. It gives you your bare necessities. It gives you
Yeah.
the means to not have to worry about money or insurance or whatever it is that you don't want to be worrying
Yeah.
about. But it just basically at the end of the day leaves you with enough energy to work on
Mhm.
whatever business project, anything that you want to be working on,
Mhm.
and everything else is sort of gravy. But I think that they get in their head like, no, I need to find the perfect
Mhm.
day job. What's the perfect day job? So do you believe in the perfect day job?
I do, but not, I think, in the way that a lot of people struggle with that question.
Uh-huh.
I think, I really feel strongly about the big picture, about your life as a whole picture, not just your day job and then your after your day job,
Right,
I
right,
really do
right.
think of that. And I think, and I've done this too, a lot of people mistake that they look for jobs like consumers. Like people go, oh, Google's a cool company, so I want to work for them, even though the experience of it may not be a good fit. Like I had a very good friend who was very high up in Apple, what a
Mm,
sexy job. Oh my gosh, like an amazing company. They do all of this stuff. He was miserable in what he was doing. He made great money. He was just unhappy. And
right.
so there's that element. And I just feel like in those kind of questions, like think about what kind of time do I need? Like what are my priorities? Like, do I have like one of the things I realized is that I could get by on a part-time salary, you know, because I wanted 4 days to do my work as opposed to three, as opposed to two even. Like I could work 3 days, get the insurance, get all of those things and still have 4 days to live my life. But that was something a lot of people find that really scary and challenging because they think I need these things. I need, and like their priorities are car payments or, higher end living, I'm a full believer in abundance and really being like, what feeds that abundant side of you? Like, what makes you really happy and comfortable? It isn't always the amount of money, but it's the experiences that those things provide. And for me, was having more time to do my work, but also having a stable income, just enough that I could do other things. So I think that
And that to
perfect day
you is the
job.
perfect. That's the
Yeah,
perfect
to
day job for
me,
you.
right, exactly. And so the perfect job for somebody is, I would say start with a list of like, what, what's happiness to you? What's happiness to you? What do you think when you think of not necessarily what your perfect day job is, but what it's going to give you, start
Yeah.
there. Like, how will you feel when you have your perfect day job? What kind of time will you have? What will you be doing? How will you be spending your time? What are some of the things that you want to be working with? That's where you start and then you go back down. You go back down to the
Yeah.
kind of job. Yeah.
I know people that left their jobs and then went back not only for the money but for the structure, went back to
That's what I'm talking
part-time
about.
stuff.
Yeah.
One became like a bike messenger, right? A few times
Hmm.
a week. And she's like, oh my God, I get to be a bike messenger. It's going to be so cool. I'm going to get to ride my bike all over the city. I'm going to be outside. Like, usually when I'm doing, my art, I'm like
Hmm.
inside and I don't get outside.
Yeah.
And the other one went to work at like a pie shop early in the
Yeah.
morning. She's like, I work from 6 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock in the
Hmm.
morning. And I become a morning person and I come home
Hmm.
and I kind of hang out for an hour and then I have like the whole rest of the day to do my stuff. And I've gotten my socialization and I've started my day off
Hmm.
early. And it just gave her so much more that the paycheck kind of
Yeah.
became not the main focus.
Yeah.
Um, really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like my version of that was to do like administrative work 3 days a week, you know,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to pay a ton. It just has to give you what you want, like like your client being able to be home for an hour and then have the rest of the day. Like that really fed her, that feeds her. And so I think that's really important to not think in terms of like a profession or even paycheck, but to think, what am I trying to support? What is it that I'm trying to build around, in order to create like the healthiest experience that I can have.
Ah, I love that, and I think it goes back to the benefactor.
Hmm.
What would make this job your benefactor?
Absolutely.
And I love what Deborah just commented here. You know, I'm freelancing, but I dream of finding that perfect creative part-time day job.
Yeah.
And I think we
Yeah.
also need to take these day jobs off a pedestal sometimes
Yeah.
too. That we feel like, oh, we're gonna love it. Like, oh, we have to find something that we're gonna just love. And meanwhile, no, you probably won't love it. And if you do love it, then maybe you don't want to do the thing that you're working on doing. If you
Hmm.
love
Hmm.
this other thing that's easier and in front of you and there.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but instead, what's perfect about it is whatever makes it your benefactor and gives you
Absolutely.
the the means to do the work that you want to be doing. And
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned too before that you knew going part time, 3 days a week was still going to give you your insurance, was still going to give
Hmm.
you the money that you needed.
Hmm.
I think sometimes we fall back on false beliefs and we might not have looked at our expenses or our bank account in months, but we've convinced ourselves that, well, we can't go part time, we can't afford it, we can't.
Hmm.
So taking that time to really investigate things
Yeah. Yeah.
and what would it take. And, I had a client once, her homework was to like go over your bank statements and go over your expenses and like then come back to me and tell me that you can't
Hmm.
quit your job till 2020. And she came back to me and said, I know that I'm a saver and I know that I'm a worrier. And I have a year's worth of expenses in the bank right now. Like,
Oh
oh,
my
uh,
gosh.
oh my God. And meanwhile, she was saying to me, no, 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 I can't quit my job before 2018 because I don't have the money. I was like, did you know you had all that money saved up? No. So it didn't
It's
mean for her that she was quitting the next day because she
no.
needs that much kind of saved up. But she went, oh, I could go back to school eventually. Oh, I could make a total change, even if I get paid half of what I'm making now. If
That's
it's
right.
going to be more aligned with what I want to do. Oh, I didn't think I
Yeah.
had those options. So looking at that
Yeah.
is so important.
It's so important. And
We have a
again,
question from
oh,
Gabby. Oh, yeah. No, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you going to say?
no,
Finish the
Gabby,
thought.
Gabby, go for it. I want to hear about Gabby.
Yay, so exciting. Question. Okay. I'm new at illustrating. I have a background in graphic design. Do you have any advice for getting started in this field and landing a paid gig? Should I send out my work to as many people as
Yes.
possible?
Next
Good. That's
question.
the
No, just
answer.
kidding.
That's the answer.
Yes, yes. And I think that's the hardest thing. I think it's the hardest thing to get started doing, but just do it. Don't worry about it. Just do it. Even if it's 10 people, just start doing it. I think it's like this big brain force field that you kind of have to break through, and feel, yeah, it's definitely something that I've struggled with. And I really feel like the minute you do it, you'll do it more and more and more and more. It's just going to take some time. I think Carrie Smith, the illustrator and artist, has really amazing advice of this. And she said, something is better than nothing. So
Uh,
I think of that a lot, and send it out. Even if you hear nothing, keep going. You'll be very inspired, and it'll have the added benefit of making you feel a part of that world.
uh,
Yeah.
is there anything
Yes.
else that you would say would make you feel more of a part of that world slash like um, you're getting better at it or you're allowed more to kind of be there? If that makes sense.
Hmm. I think one of the things that I finally came to the conclusion is that I always, and I'm still working on this, I'll be honest, that the internet is this really powerful thing that can either make you feel very connected or very alienated. And
Mm,
because it's so overwhelming and you just see so many people doing so amazing things, and some of it is very inspiring, but it can be very overwhelming and almost isolating in a weird way. And it can make you feel like they're not in the same world as you. You're not there. And that's why I say snail mail is the most powerful tool still out there because email is so easy to be ignored. And I think that one of the things that happens with artists, this is one of my really big things, and I want to write more about this, is that, we talk about living the dream and, having an artistic life. I think honestly, that's the wrong angle. I think what we're actually asking to do is be a part of the arts, which is different
Oh.
than just being an artist. And being a part of the arts is much larger than the artist. It's for an illustrator, it's editors, it's receptionists, it's
Mhm.
magazines. It's like so many people. It's not just illustrators. And so to think of it in that way, and like, who do I want to know? Who do I want? Whose work do I love? Whose work do I appreciate? Never underestimate the power of a postcard. Just saying, I really love what you do, and think of yourself as part of not just a single illustrator in the sea, in this giant sea of other illustrators. Think of yourself as an illustrator, part of a large tribe of people who make visual work available to the world.
You're taking
Yeah.
your mom's advice. She's going to be so proud.
Yeah, that's the bigger picture. That's the bigger picture of
That's
my mom.
thinking
Yeah.
larger. But
That is,
I
that
love that
is.
perspective because it takes it away from
Hmm.
putting the pressure on yourself. It's
Hmm.
no longer than about you being successful or influential or an expert,
Yeah,
or if you've made it, it becomes about being part of art
yeah,
itself.
yeah, yeah. Which is a living, breathing machine, and
Amazing.
yeah, and so that's something that I think we forget all the time, that we're not the only ones out there. And it's not like us and then like a wall of success that we're like trying to
Uh-huh.
crack our ice pick into, it's about really entering a world and seeing yourself a part of that, you know.
Love it. I can't believe how the time has flown.
Yeah.
It's totally crazy. We still have a few more minutes left. Yay! So if
Okay.
anyone has questions, keep the questions coming. But before then, I'd love for you to touch on um, how your books kind of came to be,
Hmm.
and a little bit on if you feel now that there's a balance between the illustrations and the writing, kind
Hmm.
of how you work those together
Hmm.
in your day-to-day
Yeah.
life.
Well, I'll talk about how the books came together. So I talked before, I made a zine and I gave it away, and it kind of lit a fuse. And I actually got a lot of interest from it. And, I think one of the most powerful things you can do, and this is a SARC thing, a Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy thing, but she says one of her greatest things of advice that I took from her is like, make something real. So if you have a
Mm,
book idea, and making a zine for me made it real. It took it out of my brain and made it into a real thing. And so from there it grew. And I really, the minute I was able to put it out in the world, I really felt a larger piece coming together. And so one of the things that I had was already doing was publishing these illustrated comics slash short stories in Skirt magazine, which was wonderful. I was doing that. I did that for 2 years monthly, and I had an agent already contact me from that. And I was already, when I had the zine come out, and I had some people being like, "Hey, send me your work," or they were interested in this subject. And when I did, it just wasn't going anywhere. And so this is another thing. It's like when you're just sitting there being like, someone asked me for something, please. Like you're like, all these
uh-huh,
requests
uh-huh.
are coming to you, and you're like, okay, I'll do whatever you asked me to do, and it's not working. Start thinking in terms of like, what can I do on my own behalf? Like, what is something
Oh.
that I could stand up and say, I'm going to do something on my own behalf? And so I made a list of agents, of friends of mine who are published. I said, would it be okay if I, queried your agent? And then I went back to this email I'd gotten 3 years earlier from this agent and said, I kind of got this idea. And she ended up being my agent, which was amazing.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was so cool. And so, yeah, I did that. And, again, I think one of the things with Artists in the Office is that it had such an easy story that people immediately
Right.
got, you know? It's such an artist with a day job. Yes,
Done.
and so I didn't
Right,
have to
right.
explain it. I didn't have to like puff it up or anything. People immediately got it. I mean, if anybody's going to get it, it's an editor at a publishing house,
Mhm.
They're like, hello,
Right, right.
I met so many amazing editors, shopping this book around that like this one woman was a sock monkey artist slash poet who like was an editor, at this publishing. It was just amazing to meet all these artists, that are like doing day jobs. Yeah. So
Right.
did I
That's
answer your
amazing.
question? Yeah.
You did, and I'm going to
Okay.
actually follow up with a question from Violet
Yeah.
before I make you
Oh,
talk
good.
about kind of balancing things.
Yeah.
Violet said, first, you're inspiring me to go back to cartoon panels. I mostly gave it up to be a mixed media artist, so that is
Oh,
super exciting. It seems like that's one of her first loves, going
oh,
back to.
yes.
Mission
Yes.
accomplished.
Make a zine,
I love
Violet, Violet. Yes, make a zine. Make
it.
it real.
It's such a. Are there okay? Not to be all like I don't. I know zines were so big in like the '90s and the
Yeah,
early aughts.
yeah.
Now, I mean, and it's so interesting, right? Because if you make a zine now, it might even get noticed more because there
Hmm.
zines anymore. I would think that like the 2013 or 2014 version of making a zine would be like go put your book on Amazon,
Hmm.
print on demand or Kindle or
Hmm.
self-publish or something like that,
Yeah,
or make an ebook to sell it on your website. But it
yeah.
seems like based on what you've been talking about in terms of just sending it out, that's like not necessarily the way to go.
Well, I think that making it digital is good. I
Huh.
think though, as a practice, like, and what I would say to Violette is the process of putting something together physically is actually really way more profound. And you can
Mm.
always put it online. You can always make it an ebook. You can always do all of these things. But the minute you see it in your hands, it's real. It's not going into the ether. It's not just like dust. It's something real. You can send it to everybody like send it to people you admire, find out who their publishers are. It becomes something, it's a gift, that
Yeah.
is less likely to be ignored. I think that's one of the things that's sort of interesting about this, the sort of way that the internet has been wonderful, but it's also made tangible things special, more
Ah,
special. So
ah.
I still am a giant believer because you don't need very much to make a zine. Take away the preciousness of it. It doesn't have to be polished even. It's a Xerox machine and pen and ink. That's it, you know. So yes, Violette, please make one and then send one to me. I'll trade with you.
Love.
Yeah,
Yay. Oh, and let me
yeah,
answer Jill's question really quickly because she
yeah.
has to leave and asked if there's a rebroadcast. Um, and Jill, if you actually just bookmark this link automatically turns into a recording like the moment we're done. So you could
Yay.
just come back to this link and watch everything that you might miss in the next 5 minutes. So
Jill,
I love
you're
that about
awesome. I
Spreecast.
love your art, Jill. You're awesome.
Yay! Love it. And I'll also have stuff on my blog and blah 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 by the end of the week. Like here's everything we talked about, and here's the recording, and here's all the things and tweets and blah blah blah. Fabulous. Okay, so let's spend the last few minutes because I so want to pick your brain just
Yeah.
about like your Renaissance soulish career. So is there some sort of a method to the madness of illustrating and writing?
There's a madness to the method. But
Oh,
there's
tell me.
uh it's yes, and how can I distill this? I guess what I would say is now I feel that illustration as is my day job. That's really
Mm,
honestly, it really is my day job. I love doing illustration, but my passion is comics and comic poetry and doing short stories. It's fiction, which isn't necessarily marketable. You know what I mean? But this
Right,
is what I'm
right.
saying about finding something to help fund the work that you want to be doing. And so I do things. I'm the primary caregiver of my son. My husband works full time at a day job, and so I send him to school, and then I'm like on it. I have no other time to do my work, and so I do what I have to do, and squeeze a lot of things at night, or I do a comic every single day, and I do it at bedtime, or I do it like in these little cracks and corners. But I always have a priority every single day, which is if I have a paid work, I do my paid work, I do my time in, and then I squeeze in little things here and there. So it's very, very diligent. Yeah,
How you got to do it. How you
gotta
got to
do
do
it.
it. It's
Gotta do it.
what do they say?
Yeah.
I always get this wrong. Always, but I think it's Parkinson's law that says like the amount of things that you have to do or how long it takes for you to do things
Mhm.
expands and contracts based on how much time you have. So when you know
Totally.
you only have
Totally.
3 hours, you're
Yeah.
getting done in 3 hours what might
Yes.
otherwise take you 5 hours or 8 hours when you don't have
Totally.
that structure.
Yeah, I think
Big
about
time.
the pre-parenting years
Uh-huh.
versus the
Uh-huh.
post-parenting years. And I will say, I'm like, I want to go back in time and be like, what are you doing with your life? You have so much time. I literally like later on for years being like, what's my purpose? That's like now I'm like, I don't have time to think about my purpose. I'm doing
My
whatever I have to do,
right. Right.
and again, to come full circle, there is a power, there's a freedom in committing, right? And so when you have time, you just do it and that's it. You don't think about it. You just commit to that task and you do it.
I love it. Violet wants to know how large do you draw your strips?
I do it on 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So I have a journal actually that I do all my work in, even my illustration work. So this is what I use, and see if I can do a page. Yeah. So, and I just try to do whatever is easy. So here's a page that I did, and so it's just 8.5 by 11, and that way you can Xerox it. It's not a problem. The paper's readily available. Yeah.
Um, I love it. I love this. I love you. I hope it's not too forward of me.
Mhm.
Just
It's not too forward. I've been feeling the same way, Michelle.
don't tell our husband or
I know.
do.
Shh,
They're
shh,
fine with
or
it.
do,
They'll be fine.
do.
They'll be fine. Or do. It's fine. Um, I'm so excited to have sat down and picked your brain and just hear your inspiring story. There's so many nuggets of Amazeballs Nest. I feel like I'm gonna have to just rewatch it as soon as we're done to be like, oh, and this and this and this and this to get it all to sink in.
Well, thank you.
Just
Wow.
love
It's been an
what you're
honor. I
doing.
love talking to
Uh,
you. I love talking to you. I love
you
what you do. I think you're such a powerful force in the world. So thank you for including me on
okay? I could die happy now. All right. Uh, what's next for you? I have to ask before we wrap up. Like,
Yeah.
what's next? Is there not what's next? What are you working on now?
Well, I'm working on my illustration work is taking me to, working on a food book that will be out in fall. So that's a major
Oh,
book, which is really cool. And then I'm also doing a year of daily comic strips of my daily life. I do a diary comic. And then the seeds that I'm percolating with, my mom died in March, and I told you about her amazing life, and I want to start writing a book about her. So those are my things I'm working on. Yeah.
oh, you. Okay, everyone go to summerpierre.com. There's so much gorgeous goodness there. Oh my God, you're gonna get lost. You're gonna get lost in it. And then, Arwen, if you could put up the link to Grown Up Gigs. I have a year. You were like, I started this series in January of 2013. So you, Miss Summer Pierre, are closing out a year of Grown Up Gigs.
I'm toasting you with my pen and paper here. Toasting you. Cheers.
I
Happy
should
New
have brought
Year,
the
my dear.
champagne. I should have brought the champagne.
Cheers.
I will toast you with my mason jar. So there is a lot of grown-up gig goodness, and there'll be more grown-up gigs goodness to come in 2014. So just everyone keep your eye on that page or sign up for the grown-up gigs list, and you'll be the first to know what's happening for 2014. Otherwise, you could just hop around on my site at whenigrowupcoach.com and hang out. Right? We're all here to hang out and get to know each other.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. You're amazing. Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here live, and anyone that's
Thanks,
watching
everybody.
the recording. Thank you too.
Thank
Bye
you.
everyone. Have a great night.